Alright, we've made some progress on the car. The race car. Truck's just sitting there. It can wait. We're just adding more nitrous to it. So, last two videos you saw there's no motor in the car. The motor, you can call it in the car, but as you can see down here, these are just placed on there. We're just mocking everything up. There, oh, that fell off. Borrowed this nice tube bender from JD Squared, jd2.com. It works excellent. No kinking or anything like that. Let's see here. So we've got transmission sitting in there. The engine's actually sitting on a cart. Where's the other bar at? This is going to be so much fun to get into once I have everything in there. There it is. This was the difficult one. Well, can that go in there? Shit. Place it first. One-handed. This works so well. Huh, there we go. So, we had this notch up here. It turned out pretty good. Then we had this bend. And if you can view from up here, it's not a straight line over to this bar. So it's coming forward. And then we come down here, and we had another bend here, and a notch down to the frame rail. Then took this one here. So this will have some plates on it right here, bolted on, maybe a plate here, bolting it on, and a runner down the side, bolting it to this mid plate. This is how these engines are attached. They don't have regular engine mounts on the sides, as you can see. There's not even a position for them. That's the oil pump there. So these two bars were most difficult for my skill level, which is 0. I wanted them to intersect about the same position up here because we have ordered a dash bar, I guess you would call it. It's going to go right above it. So this joint will be meshed in with another piece here going all the way across to right here where this one meets. So that'll be like support and everything for the top or the front of the windshield, stuff like that. And then have support runners up here. Be kind of like this frame stuff here. So that main portion is in. I had to order some different plates for here. That'll get welded on here and then bolted to here. Because I'm not as good as the Germans and can't weld the chromoly to the aluminum. Don't want to try that. Once that is in, we will come over here and double check our driveline angle or pinion angle. From here back here to the drive shaft. You probably can't see it where the trunk is back there, but we'll put an imaginary drive shaft there and measure the angle that it sits on here. So it's going to be about a 1 degree negative angle based on where the engine's setting, how far back the transmission is, stuff like that. These are the awesome Linko transmissions. Oh shit, yeah, that doesn't sit there. We took these apart last weekend to kind of see how they work. I had a good understanding of how they work, but now that I've taken it apart, it's very simple. The shift linkage isn't on here, but there's just a plate of metal that pushes this silver piece you can see in here. It pushes that down, and if you can imagine a fork like this, just goes in between two rollers on the inside, and it pushes the clutch pack together. So it's like a clutch pack in a automatic transmission, but it's just manually shifted because this section of the transmission and this section of the transmission do not have any oil pressure. They actually run like a 30 weight oil from what I've been reading. It's not like a transmission oil. This section up here has the pump and the torque converter that will be in here, and the line lock or trans brake. Usually a trans brake will hold the transmission in first gear and reverse at the same time, and then when you let go of the button, it lets go of the reverse, so you're already in first, so it's not like you're just slamming the gear in with the RPMs up. This one works differently, as in this solenoid, this valve somehow holds like a brake on the driveline in here, because your torque converter's here. So it's not mechanically connected to the driveline. Torque converters work off of fluid, so they're connected by fluid. So we took that apart, so it's very easy to change my this right here, this one's loose. If I'm at the track and I have a little mechanical gauge that looks like a fish scale, the one you would hold up. If I'm at the track and the track is biting really hard, I can tighten this down. So I'll unloosen this big nut down here and then screw this down a couple times, put the shift linkage back in, and we can check it by pulling on the lever with a gauge. It'll tell us how many pounds of pull. But if let's say the track is very loose, like I'm doing a no prep race, and whenever I shift in the second, it's losing traction because it's shifting so hard, I can loosen this, take the linkage off, screw it out some, and it won't shift as hard down. The force won't be as hard on the clutch pack because it's two tapered pieces on that fork that either push it in really fast, or it's backed off and it pushes it in easier. So you can change it from soft to hard just by adjusting the height on this right here. So that's very simple, and it's very simple to change gear sets. It's literally these bolts here. There'll be some brackets or whatever here. Transmission end off, it'll have end caps on the universal joint. So pop that off, set it to the side, or disconnect it. The reverser will come out. This is your forward and reverse. It's not in the main sections of the transmission, it's in the back. So I'm not sure if you can only have a forward transmission. I think some of the salt flat guys only have forward because they don't need a reverse. But this will, I'm pretty sure this will go as fast forward as it does backwards, theoretically. I bet your car won't do it, this one won't. But yeah, you pull that off, and there's just a whole clutch pack and sun gear and planetary gear set that comes out, and then you just have another one laying there and you just put it in. And bolt it back up, put some oil in it. Well, if you can remember to do that, and go racing. But this is where we're at on the car so far. None of this is finish welded, or everything is going to get mocked up, placed in, engine mounted. The bar going across here, the other bars for the seat that I'm sitting on. All that stuff will get mounted, mocked up, and then all the parts will be taken out, and we'll have a welding party. But yeah, we got to get this thing ready because September 7th or 8th, the No Prep Kings from the Street Outlaws are coming to Bandimere here in Colorado. Son of a... Oh, let me get out of this car. So we've got to get it ready. Oh, here's a drive shaft loop. This isn't welded yet, just been mocked up. Opening will probably be a little bit more open. But I have to place that somewhere, I can't remember if it's 6 inches or 12 inches, within 12 inches of the universal joint. I gotta look up the rules. But anyway, that'll be placed somewhere right about here to keep, and what it does is it keeps the driveline, let's say if the universal joint breaks right here, it's going to keep that driveline from whipping around and breaking my shoulder off, which has actually happened to people. It'll rip your whole arm off. So we want to make this thing safe because I'm pretty sure my mom still loves me, and she may watch this video or watch me race, and I don't want her to freak out all the way when I don't have safety stuff. So this is the really, it's a top secret. I'll tell you guys, but don't tell anybody. So this is some top secret parts. Some place called Napa. I think it's in California, not sure. Somewhere in a valley. But this is a starter off of a Dodge Dakota. This is what the guy before I bought this engine from was using. And you're probably thinking to yourself, a Dodge Dakota starter, that's really not going to work that well or that long. He said he would go through like maybe one starter per season, but what he was doing is, this is a 12-volt starter. He was actually running 24 volts to the starter. The only reason for that is these engines have a mechanical fuel pump. So I think I showed in the other video, this is the fuel pump here. It's got that little shaft here, it goes on the front of the engine. Well, it's gear driven off the front cover here. It's got to suck fuel out of the fuel tank that'll be right there and send it up all these lines and into the hat. So that's one reason you see them prime in the hat with some fuel out of a bottle. They'll actually use mostly gasoline and not methanol, because it ignites easier than the methanol, and it helps kind of prime the system, because it'll get the engine going just a little bit faster than the starter can. But the 24 volts on the 12-volt starter, if you know anything about Ohm's law, it's gonna spin it faster, and they can take it for a while. I probably wouldn't do it on your home vehicle. I don't know why you need to spin it faster. As you can see here, it's showing some pretty good wear. This is the one he sent with it. But yeah, we gotta spin it fast. So top secret Napa power Dodge Dakota starter. I think that's all we've gotten done. We're working on more and more every day, and this is probably the hardest part, is getting the driveline angle correct to the chassis. That's why you see it have it mocked up on jack stands and boards and measuring everything, and my floor is not completely level, so we actually measured the grade on the floor, or zeroed the grade on the digital angle finder. We zeroed it on the floor so that we're going off the floor, so because most garages are tilted outwards to help with water drain. You pull in with snow on it, you don't have a huge puddle of water it wants to drain out. So yeah, if you do any driveline angle, think about that. You can't just use a bubble level and be like, oh, it's level. Most people run plus or minus 1 degree, but that's where we're at. Follow, watch, like, share, laugh at me. This is gonna be a blast, and keep watching for more videos.